Hello, I'm Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and this is I Want to Be a Better Coach. And I'm sharing different perspectives and philosophies and principles that have been really important to me as a coach over the last 25 years, as well as what I learned as a therapist the 20-ish years before that, working in recovery, working with families, working in abuse, all kinds of places. So this is a place where I'm sharing based on questions or thoughts that I've had that have been really important and the questions that you've been asking. So I'll get started here. First of all, I wanted to mention Socrates, this philosopher from a long time ago. And for me, he's been, I didn't know this at the time, but his teaching style was based on the principle that his students already knew the answers, in a sense. His students already knew the answers. So they would ask a question like, tell me about this. And he'd reflect and ask questions back, like, what do you know about this? And what he and the students discovered is they learned a lot more by asking questions, by the uh, teacher mentor asking questions, as opposed to him answering the questions for his students. So he empowered his students to utilize their own thinking processes to know the answers that they knew. You know, it was interesting a long time ago when I was in, I think, 8th grade, and I was in a math class with Mr. Zook, who was one of my favorite teachers ever. And he was asking us to do some problem solving thing. And he said, because we weren't coming up with the right answers or whatever, he said, think, people, think. And it was like a light went on and a light bulb went on. And I said, I don't know what he's talking about. I have no idea what he's talking about. And that was the first realization that I had that I'm not actually utilizing, as far as I knew, consciously using my choice making and my capacity to think and utilize my intelligence. So I was in, now this is just for me personally, but I think that there's a lot of people out there that we aren't utilizing what we know. We're not utilizing our capacity to think and um, and put thoughts together in such a way that makes sense for us personally. So I bring that up because I found when I was training coaches in person with a group that asking questions, having them ask questions, and then me asking questions of them, the learning came out far more rich and delicious and full for them than had I given them the answers. And to me, this is a foundation of the coaching practice that I've established, is that, and you've heard me say this before, is my job is to let you know that I know that you know. And so if I empower you to utilize that knowing and tap into that knowing, you're far more enriched by that experience than if I were to tell you, here's what to do. So think about that in terms of, this is not just some new founded aspect of transformational, coaching, and isn't this the greatest thing? Socrates was doing it a long time ago. So keep that in mind, and maybe that will support that part of you that says, like, how do I ask questions that will empower my clients to source into themselves for their own answers? So that's my first thought for today. I was working with a second thought. I was working with a new trainee today. She's brilliant. She's so far ahead. She's done some training with other people, and she started training with me. And she's looking at who she is as a coach, like, who am I and how do I show up and what's going on? And she said, so so she was asking this question, but she said, am I the thought of who I am? Am I the thought of me, or am I me? And that's a really great question, because we went into this whole sense of who she is when she's sitting and creating that space for her clients. But when she was able to see the difference between, here's her thought of her as a coach, here's what I do, here's what I'm supposed to do, here's what I look like, here's what it means, all of that stuff, versus being me. I'm me, and the expression of me is the expression of me in this moment. So even in this context of me creating these videos, I can go into who am I as the teacher, who am I as the provider of information. Who am I in the way I dress, or the age, or the gender? Who am I in all these thoughts? Or who am I in this being, this essence of energy in this moment, being with you? And quite often, in a sense, our self-consciousness, we are self-conscious, so we think about who we are and who we should be, and the way that we should be, as opposed to saying, I'm just me. And that's one of the most valuable experiences of these YouTube videos for me, and I've done almost 500 of them, is I'm learning how to let go of the thought of me and just be me. Now, in relation to being a coach, basically it's the thought of being you, or just being you in the presence of other people. And when I was asking, I'll call her Carolyn, when I was asking Carolyn what that is for her when she's just being, she said, I'm holding the space as a coach, in a sense, I'm being me, holding the space for clear open-mindedness, 100% potentiality, calmness and curiosity, and non-judgmentalness. Like, this is the essence of what she's creating in that space of her being with her clients. And this is a really great place for her to practice, because she has this, here's the space I'm working to create, being me, as opposed to the thought of being me. So it's fascinating, because it's like we do this all day long. It's like the thought of me being a woman, the thought of me being in my 70s, the thought of me being a coach, the thought of me being a writer, the thought about me driving into town, the thought of me owning a cat. There's all these thoughts about me, and it's not me. They're just thoughts. And how do I like go, whoa, wait a second. So who am I? Who am I being in the presence of my cat? Who am I in the presence of my client? And that's what we're cultivating for ourselves, to be more effective as a coach. And it's what we're attempting to, it's our intention with our clients to say, who are you in there? Not who are you thinking you are, but who are you? When I was speaking with Carolyn last week, and we were talking about, I'm trying to think what that was, but it was a matter of saying, so what's the quality of being you right now? But what's the quality of being you? And she said, well, when I was in the hospital 3 or 4 years ago, when I was in the hospital, I said, stop. I'm not asking about what you were. I'm asking you now, that quality of being. And she was quiet for a while, and she goes, oh man, it's just calm. It's like being on a raft in the ocean. And it's just like, it's just me being. It's just awesome. She goes, it might be ripples or waves or whatever, but I am me here, and this is awesome. So she really tapped into that deep, in a sense, oceanic bliss of who she is, just is, as we all are. And she can hold that space as like, this is me, and how can I be more this, in the 3D world? And that's the challenge and the dilemmas we are always facing with ourselves and with our clients. So yeah, looking at who and quite often when we choose to be a coach, or choose to be a doctor, or choose to be a waitress, or choose to be a mom, whatever that is, we have an image and a thought of that. This is who I am as a mom, as a doctor, as a coach, as a owner of a cat. My cat's right here. But that's not who I am. That's just a thought, as me as a doctor, me as a mom, me as a whatever. So it's being able, like, see if you can pay attention to that, to go, wow, that's just my thought of me as a. And again, there's quite a few people who want to lose weight, and they can imagine themselves thinner and feeling more present in their body. But the thought of that is different than who they really are, in a sense, the fears and what gets in the way of them just being healthy in their bodies at the weight they want to be. Just being that is very different than the thought of them being there. So that's part of what we're working through with ourselves and with our clients. Everything we're working through, our clients are working through. Everything our clients are working through, we're working through. And we just got to know that. And the more we can get support for that, personally, professionally, that's a good thing. Which brings me to, if you're interested in getting some supervision and or coaching, I'm available to do that on a one-to-one. And I also have an amazing coaching group every other week that we get together. It's a people who are coaches, and we get together and we ask questions and talk about what's showing up in our practice. It's really, really, really amazing what shows up. Okay, so that information is below, so in the description below. And if you have a question yourself, there's a form down below that you can fill in, and I'll ask those questions, answer those questions for you. And also give me a thumbs up if you find value in this, and or share it with somebody if you find that it's got the value to share it with someone. Okay, next one. I had a conversation with a friend. I'm going to call her. I have to come up with these names. I'm going to call her Wilma. And Wilma called me yesterday, and she's somebody I've known for a long time. And she goes, my daughter, and we'll call her Brenda. Brenda, her daughter Brenda, is having a rough time. And on the one hand, Brenda has a job and she works and she's organized and she takes care of, she's caring for people who can't take care of themselves. So she shops and she cleans and she does the laundry and she organizes and she feeds and she cooks for that person. On the other hand, she's not doing that for herself, like barely. And so my Wilma called me, the mom called me and said, hey, what are the resources in the city where she's at? Because she's not coping well and she needs some support, but I can't find it. So as we talked about it, we saw in a sense that Brenda, the daughter, she has the capacity to make good choices. And for some reason, she's choosing not to make good choices when it comes to her own well-being. So that's pretty fascinating. So with the mom, Wilma, I say, like, we got to put a stake in the ground that she has the capacity to do the cleaning and the cooking and the taking care of, because she's doing that for another person. So we have to put a stake in the ground that she can do this. And what is it? It's not our business to know what it is, but there's something that's in her way that has her not do that for herself. In the conversation Wilma had with her daughter, Brenda, at some point, and Wilma said, look, Brenda, you can turn this around. And Brenda had been abused by her dad and those kinds of things, and was living in pretty much of a victim mentality. And Wilma said, you can turn this around. And Brenda said, I don't think so. She said, I don't know how to live outside this victim mentality. You know, I don't know how to do life outside this perspective of who I am as a victim. That's pretty clear. And I'll tell you, 99% of my clients who come in who are wanting to transform and move into their fullest potentiality, and this includes me, I don't know how to do me. I don't know how to do life in that way yet, in that potentiality, in that fulfillment. Or I don't know how to do me. There were times I didn't know how to do me without being the victim. It was my whole persona, if you will. So I'm familiar with Brenda's perspective. I don't know how to do me without feeling like I'm a victim to the world or to people or my parents or my family. I don't know how to do me. And so it doesn't matter so much the context of the individual circumstances. We all sometimes have that place like, I don't know how to do me outside this. Now, working with people who've had substance abuses, and substance addictions even, and our thought patterning can be so habitual in a sense that it's addictive. So that there's an addictive patterning of victiming ourselves, like this is my world. And the way that we create our world can support, see how I'm a victim, see how I can't do it for myself, see how this is in the way, see how, and we're pointing to all these things that keep us at this place of no possibility. And this is true for alcoholics. I've met many alcoholics who they're so enmeshed in their drinking that they can't see life without the drink. You know, people with the drugs, they can't see themselves outside that without the drug. people who have an eating disorder, they can't see themselves outside of that. So this is where we as coaches can distinguish and support people and going, we all have this. We all have these patterns and habits and addictions to certain, in this case, patterns of thinking, emotional patterns, like we can worry or feel guilty. We can have patterns of anger or patterns of bitterness. We can have patterns of sadness. We can have all these patterns, and the more that they're ingrained, the less we have, in a sense, we have control over it. This is where um, in the 12-step program, it's like my life is unmanageable. We get to a point where we can acknowledge and admit that in the 12 steps, we're admitting life is unmanageable right now, and I need to turn to something else. I'm powerless over my addictions, and that again can be thoughts, feelings, sensations, habits, things that we do, like Instagram, Facebook, being on, gaming, all that stuff. It's like I'm powerless over it. My life is unmanageable. And for Brenda, her life is unmanageable. She's working, but it's unmanageable. So she needs support. And so Wilma was calling me to say, hey, what support can I find for her? And that's a really good thing. Now, the point in this is for us as coaches, I'm not trying to heal or fix or problem solve with Wilma or with Brenda. We're looking at what are the dynamics here that are in place, and at what point is Brenda ready to make that choice to say, to admit my life is unmanageable and I need to turn to somebody truly and walk the steps, if you will, to more well-being for herself. Again, I know she can do it because she's doing it for someone else. She's making good choices for someone else. She's not making good choices for herself. It's fascinating. And I know that's true for me. I can take care of other people really well. And am I honoring myself with that same level of self-care? And if not, I got to look at that. And that makes me no different than Brenda. It just doesn't. So that's the element of our coaching, who we are in our being. I'm a coach, but I'm a human being first with my thoughts and feelings and my way of being and my patterns and my contexts and my paradigms. I'm this before I'm a coach. And so we have to pay attention to that for ourselves and also for our clients. So anywhere along the way, when our life is unmanageable because of our patterns of being, you can call them a habit or pattern or addiction, but when our life becomes unmanageable, we can admit that. I mean, we can look at it, and it's supposed to, our job as a coach to go, wow, your life is unmanageable this way, in this way. And the person can go, it is. It's like, okay, what do you want to do about that? In a sense, what is it you want? Maybe you want to maintain this life that's unmanageable. And I have to honor the person's perspective. I'm not ready to do anything different. Okay, great. Hands off. And I can support them in being who they are, keep my hands off, not try to solve the problems, not try to fix it, not try to say, well, why don't you try, or why don't you try? But just like, no, a person's not ready. A person's not ready. I can love and support people where they're at. That's hard. When I was talking to Wilma yesterday and she's presenting what's going on for Brenda, I'm going, oh my God, what can I do to fix? What can I do to help? How can I make it better? So that's part of what we're up to. And I'll talk to you more about this addiction element in upcoming post series. But that's a big part. And the other part is, Wilma's part in how she maybe enables Brenda to stay where she's at. So that's a whole nother conversation with the person who is dependent, in a sense, codependent on another individual. And so Wilma's working that out in another way. So, but it's interesting for us to sit with, and because of my background in addictions, I see it everywhere. In a sense, our patternings, our habits, our addictive thinking really plays havoc with our hormones and our stress levels and our physical well-being, all of that. well, it's just part of it. So that's what I wanted to say about that. The last part of this, which has to do again with Brenda, is when there's nowhere to go and nothing to do. In a sense, I did some research and called some contacts in the city where Brenda's living, and I found out some resources for Brenda. Like, she can go here for support, she can go here for support, she can go here. Like, I gave 5 different places where Wilma can say, hey, here's supports for you. Here's where you can get all kinds of what you need. And at that point, Wilma has to back away and go, there's nothing more for me to do here. Brenda, has to make those choices for herself. She has to empower herself to engage in her life differently if that's what she chooses to do. She has to do that for herself. There's nothing more for me to do. There's nothing more for Wilma to do, but just continue to hold that space of love and compassion. So quite often with clients, we're doing third party here because Brenda, in a sense, would be the client, but she's not interested in coaching and it's not affordable for her. And her mom is a friend. So, we're working with that, but we're also aware of what part Wilma plays in this dynamic. And then there's what I do. And I have to say, I've done what I said I would do, which is to get some information about the resources in that particular city. And that's all there is to do. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And I can say that there's no more, can't do anything more. But the fact is I'm holding space for the full potentiality of what's possible for Wilma and for Brenda. In a sense, I can say, I hope it goes well, but if I'm in hope, I'm not in the truth of it is very possible for her to turn this around. And hope will be, I think I may have just talked about hope in another one in series before, but we'll talk about that again. In a sense, it's not about hope. It's holding space for whatever is in best service to everyone involved. I'm holding that space for what's in the best interest of everyone, that will be fulfilled. That could mean suicide. It could mean getting into a home. It could mean all kinds of things. It could mean for Brenda to go to nursing school, which is one of her dreams. Okay. We have no idea, but my place is to hold space for the best outcome, whatever that means to the universe, not to me or to mom or to Brenda. It's what is going to unfold. And that's a hard thing. Another element of coaching that's very difficult is, in a sense, the hands-off place is like, here's the information if you need it, or here's where to go for information. What is it you want? And if you want well-being, what steps will you take to make that happen? And she will or she won't. You will, you won't. We don't know. You don't know. So we're all going through this all the time, this life process. Sometimes there's nowhere to go and nothing to do. And sometimes when I'm in those states, it's like I get frustrated and disappointed and sad and angry because I want the control of knowing what to do. I want the control. In the book Oneness, I talk about, it says we have this need to try to control the outcome in the process. We have this need to try to control. And when I read that, it was like, oh man, that is so me. It's part of, I talked about the smarty pants syndrome. My need to be right, my need to try to control, have the answers. It's part of remaining invulnerable for me. It's an addictive habit, if you will, or a patterning that I got to look at because it's there and I'm good at it, but it gets in the way of me being authentically present with you or with whomever I'm with, my daughter, my cat, nature, my clients. So when we can let go and say, I don't know, there's nothing to do for me right now in this circumstance. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. It's like, wow, that's big. But that's part of our human experience, is to be in that place. What's it like when there's nowhere to go and nothing to do? It's like, wow, that's sort of what meditation is about. A few years ago, I did a mini retreat here at my place and I did a little walking meditation around, and it was fascinating because there's one point where I said to myself, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going around, on this path, but I'm not going anywhere. There's nowhere to go and there's nothing to do. And in that state, they would say that's a state of enlightenment or a state of awareness of that truth. It's like, again, who am I in this moment when there's nowhere to go, nothing to do? When I'm in the experience of that, who am I? And we get scared because we go, oh, I can't. Now you've had a thought about you versus, wow, here's the experience of me in this place of going nowhere, nothing to do. And it was interesting, just as a like, wow, that's interesting. So it's a place that we come to many, many times in our coaching relationship with people where I've talked about it as the big fat be with, but it's like, yeah, there's nothing to do. This is just what is, the isness of it. What's it like to experience the isness of this moment? And it's a true experience of self. And it's not scary when we can just allow ourselves that moment. And when we can allow our clients that moment. What's it like to be you here now? And it gives them an opportunity to go, wait, oh, I'm having this thought about me. It's like, well, that's not me. Here's what I'm experiencing. And we can have sensations and energy moving and visceral and physical and mental. And we have all these elements, these multidimensionalness that's occurring in this moment, always, every moment. And as coaches, we can say, what's that like right now, being you? And hold that space because you're getting more comfortable asking yourself that question too. And the more you're comfortable with these questions, asking yourself and answering themselves, you're more likely to create that space and hold that space, just much like I'm giving people names and I'm forgetting the names. But as I talked about before, is the coach who's training with me, who says, here's the space, the clear-mindedness, the holding it for 100% potentiality of my clients. That's the space that I'm holding. That's me. That's presence. Presence is huge. All right. I think that's it for now. Again, if you have any questions, there's a form below, or leave a comment. Love to hear your comments about whether you're finding value or what's been valuable for you in this particular episode. And if you like it, please share it. If you know other coaches or other people, I'm just not talking to coaches. I've talked to people who are physical therapists and or massage therapists or beauticians who run across these same questions. Like, I don't know, people are talking and I don't know how to listen. I don't know who I am in this conversation. So this is helpful to a lot of people, not just coaches per se. Parents, teachers, ministers, all kinds of us, bartenders, sponsors in 12-step programs. So if you know anyone that you think might find value here, please share. That'd be great. All right. Well, big hugs to you. Blessings, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye for now.